If you're a girl dad and you vote for a Democrat, you should know you're pretty much telling your daughter she's going to compete and change in a locker room and in sports and in beauty contests with a man who identifies as a female. When your daughter goes to school, to college, and she's rooming with her new roommate, that could be a male who identifies as a female. So in November or the next election, and you vote Democrat, now you know. Listen to Riley Gaines.
He was 504th in the nation in the event we competed against each other in the year prior, when competing against the men. To the next year, 12, not even a full 12 months, dominating the entire country. I mean, every single girl or woman in the entire nation, and not just number one. I mean, utter domination in multiple events. I saw this as wrong. My teammates saw this as wrong. My coaches, my family, anyone with any amount of brain activity saw this as wrong. But the NCAA did not. And so I got to watch as Thomas swam to a national title in the 500 freestyle. I mean, again, beating Olympians, beating American record holders. These aren't scrubs. They're the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers this world has ever seen. But he and I raced in the 200 free the next day, which ultimately resulted in a tie, meaning we went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. But despite tying, we get out of the water, go behind the awards podium. NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself, Thomas towering over me at 6'4", and the official says, "Great job, but you tied. We only have one trophy. We're going to give this trophy to Leah. Riley, you don't get one. You have to go home empty-handed." And when I asked the dreaded question that no one dared ask all season of why, why are you adamant on giving this trophy to the man in the women's 200 free? I actually appreciate his honesty. And he looked at me and he said, "Riley, I'm so sorry, but we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands."
And joining me today is a former NCAA competitive swimmer, host of Outkicks Gains for Girls podcast, director of the Riley Gaines Center, and author of Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. Riley Gaines, welcome back to the Rubin Report.
Well, thank you, Dave. I'm thrilled to be back on with you. So thank you.
We're doing this a little bit backwards because I had you on a couple weeks ago with Sage Steele doing a panel show, and now you're getting the proper interview after you've done the panel show. I think it's the first time we've ever done that. Also, your hair is very predatory right now. I love it. And I think you're in Vegas.
I am. I'm in Vegas. My hair looks like a lion's mane. It always does. But yes, I think that means I must have made a good impression if you're having me back.
You did make a good impression. The people clamored for more. So let's just dive right into it. If you don't mind, I am going to ask you to do the thing that you've done a million times before, and you kind of did with us a couple weeks ago for those who didn't see the show. But if you could just give us the kind of brief bio that made you a public person, so that when I read your intro there, it has like 87,000 things for me to say.
I know it. What a whirlwind it has been these past 2 years or so. I was an athlete. I grew up an athlete, started competing, practicing when I was 4 years old, graduated when I was 22. So, dedicated really 18 years of my life to my sport. The time, the hours, the dedication, the sacrifices that you have to make to compete at and ultimately be successful at the highest level. I was no different. Ended up going to the University of Kentucky, which I'm biased. The SEC is, in fact, the best conference. It was never a question for me to go anywhere outside of the SEC. I actually thought I was going to be a Florida Gator, though, for the longest time. Took my trip there, my official visit, didn't feel like home, kept going on my trips. Never even crossed my mind that I would go to Kentucky, because I thought the only things that came from Kentucky were like meth and Mountain Dew, neither of which I was interested in.
Well, also whiskey and bourbon. I mean,
come on. Still not interested in that either. But I took my trip there, and I loved it. I fell in love. I loved the team and the coaches and the resources that they poured into us outside of even just athletics, our academics, our service, all things that really mattered to me. And so, on a whim, committed there. Very proudly finished my career at Kentucky as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion, actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time. SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, SEC Community Service Leader of the Year, 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. But again, just to reiterate, lifelong journey to get to that point. Despite what that senile old man Keith Olbermann says, this is a public call, Keith Olbermann. I will race you. Except I don't think anyone wants to see you in a Speedo.
No. No. Nobody wants to see Keith Olbermann in a Speedo.
No, I didn't think so. But anyways, flash forward here to my senior year. My junior year, I actually ended up placing 7th in the country. I wanted to win a national title, so I set that goal for my senior year. That did not happen because the NCAA, they failed at their most basic duties of ensuring equal opportunity and privacy and safety by allowing a man to compete with the women.
Okay.
This is a very mediocre man. Actually, that's generous. This is a less than average.
Right there. We got to go back a little bit. But the point is this. All right. If you a girl dad and you go vote from the local to this federal Democrat, you're telling your daughter it's okay to be forced to change with a man. And it's okay to compete against a man. And it's okay to lose a scholarship to a man. And it's okay to room with a man. It would seem to me we men are trying to take over women's spaces. And it's sad. It's real sad. And it's got to end. Riley, carry on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful to Riley because she is.
Privacy and safety by allowing a man to compete with the women. This is a very mediocre man. Actually, that's generous. This is a less than average man who sucked, quite frankly, competing against the men, decided he would switch to the women's category, became a record smasher. It's virtually the same story every time as we continue to see these occurrences happen across the country.
Where was he ranked? Do you remember? It was like 300th or something, right? Something. We know him as Leah Thomas. So what was his real, or what's his original name? Whatever you want to call it.
Will Thomas.
William Thomas. Okay.
And 300th would be kind. He was 504th in the nation in the event we competed against each other in the year prior. When competing against the men, to the next year, 12, not even a full 12 months. Dominating the entire country. I mean, every single girl.
Do you hear this? A man is dominating the whole country as a female. In the NCAA, we allowed this. This happened 2 years ago, and it's still going on. It's going on in the lower, little kids, all the way up to the big kids. This is, crazy.
Or woman in the entire nation. And not just number one, I mean, utter domination in multiple events. I saw this as wrong. My teammates saw this as wrong. My coaches, my family, anyone with any amount of brain activity saw this as wrong. But the NCAA did not. And so I got to watch as Thomas swam to a national title in the 500 freestyle. I mean, again, beating Olympians, beating American record holders. These aren't scrubs. They're the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers this world has ever seen. But he and I raced in the 200 free the next day, which ultimately resulted in a tie, meaning we went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. But despite tying, we get out of the water, go behind the awards podium. NCAA official looks at both Thomas and myself. Thomas towering over me at 6'4". And the official says, "Great job. But you tied. We only have one trophy. We're going to give this trophy to Leah. Riley, you don't get one. You have to go home empty-handed."
You gotta give it to the board.
And when I asked the dreaded question,
give it to the board,
that no one dared ask all season of why, why are you adamant on giving this trophy to the man in the women's 200 free? I actually appreciate his honesty. And he looked at me and he said, "Riley, I'm so sorry, but we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands." And that was it for me. That was the moment when I I mean, really, I felt guilty is how I felt. I felt like I had just participated in the farce. I felt like I was just as bad as the people who created and implemented these policies by going even along with this. Again, I knew it was wrong. We all did. But for even participating, I felt responsible. And that's when I decided that I could no longer stay quiet. I could no longer lie to myself and to everyone else around me. And so I guess that was a condensed version of how I became a public person, in your words.
Yeah, so let me pause you there, because that's really the origin story. But there's a couple really interesting moments within that. So first off, what were your expectations that day that you were going into the race against him? And I have no problem saying him. Did you think there was a chance in hell that you could tie or even win, or were you just expecting to lose no matter what?
We were fighting for second place. Me and every other girl back there. We had talked about it. Like, hey, I mean, good luck. We know our hands are tied behind our back. May the best woman come out in second. We knew we were going to lose, which is a terrible, terrible feeling. As competitors, as athletes, we compete to win. That's why we play. It's not for camaraderie. It's not for friendship or to be inclusive or for any other reason than to win. And we knew that wasn't a possibility, which was, I mean, it just felt like betrayal. It felt like a mockery. It felt like belittlement. And I say betrayal because the people who were supposed to be protecting us were failing.
No. If you're looking, it ain't gonna happen again. Nope. We're gonna talk about it, Riley. We're gonna let everybody know. Girl dads, you need to know. You ain't gotta say who you're gonna vote for, you know? MAGA ain't doing this. You just gotta go in and hit it on the MAGA. That's all. Because this is over.